Yenagoa, the capital city of Bayelsa state in southern Nigeria, has a landmass of about 700 square kilometers, almost the same size as Singapore. But however, Yenagoa has a population of just over 350,000 people. The Yenagoa Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture promotes, supports, or opposes legislative and other measures affecting trade, industry, commerce, and agriculture, as well as represents the opinion of the business community in Bayelsa State. Today, I'll be speaking with Mr. Warmate Jones Idikio, the Director General of this chamber, to find out what makes him tick. Watch this. Okay, very warm welcome to Mr. Warmate Jones Idikio. He's the Director General of the Yenagoa Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Francis. I'm very glad to be a part of this meeting and interview. It's nice to know you all.
Thank you so much for taking the time off this. I believe you told me that I can actually just call you Jones. So yeah, I believe I'll call you Jones from moving forward.
Well, that's great.
Right. Thank you so much. Now, just to jump straight into this, I believe our viewers would want to know who you are because you are the man behind the entire show. You're the man who's actually running everything. So if you want to know who you are, what is your history, what is your past, what made you get into the chamber industry?
Oh, thank you, Francis. It's been a very it's a long story, but I'll keep it a bit short. Right. My background is in law. I've been in practice for like 30 to 32 years. I spent about 10 years in advocacy in law, and then I did about between 4 to 6 years in the marine, oil, and gas industry in the private sector. And in 2008, I joined the Chamber of Commerce in Yenagoa, which is in Bayelsa State, a sub-national government in Nigeria. Well, in between that, I've had lots of things to do. Also, I'm the legal advisor to the All Africa Association for Small and Medium Enterprises, which is headquartered in Mauritius. I'm also a member of faculty of the Africa Industrialization Group, which is quartered from Canada. In between, I've done a lot of work at the national level, being part of committees that fashion out policies for small and medium enterprises. And I recently founded the AFCFTA Roundtable, which is a platform for actualizing the ideals of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement on behalf of small and medium enterprises, keying them into the realities of the AFCFTA. So that's me for short. Thank you, Francis.
Wow, you have an amazing history.
Thank you so much.
When we look at all you have done and your past and what you have actually set out to do, it amazes us because we have come across a lot of people who are in chambers, but some of them are new. Some of them have been around, but the kind of experience you have, the kind of knowledge that you have, it's really an asset, not just to the chamber, but for the people of Africa.
Oh, thank you so very much, Francis. I appreciate that very much.
Now, let's speak about the chamber, the Yenagoa Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture. This has various affiliations, I believe, and you function with a focus in the advocacy, formulation, and implementation of business environment critical policies and regulations. If we were talking about venturing into business in Nigeria, let's say for myself, if I were to venture into any business in Nigeria, what would you say would be the best options for me? And how would you, as a Chamber of Commerce, support my venture?
Oh, thank you again. This is very critical for small chambers like we are. The whole idea is to ensure that we create a critical mass, especially of foreign businesses who want to station or set up business in Nigeria, and we also encourage them to be in our neck of the woods. But the first thing I'd like to do essentially for any foreign business coming into Nigeria is to help with what the chamber would do, is to help, first of all, to do a critical analysis of the area of business you'd like to be a part of in Nigeria. Once we're able to identify your preferred sector, then with regards to setting up business, we'll ideally do a market access survey or a market access due diligence on behalf of whomsoever is coming in. And then that precedes the registration process. That is, if you want to be physically present in Nigeria, or otherwise, if you want a representation of a local being representing your business, we also help to find people who are in your sector of business who can basically sit in for you out here in Nigeria. So that's, in a nutshell, is part of the services that we can provide for incoming businesses from across the world who would like to do business in Nigeria. Thank you.
That's amazing. You know, if I ever were to set up a business in Nigeria, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be in good hands.
Oh, certainly you will be in good hands. That I can guarantee.
Now, I'd just like to, this is a topic that you don't really like to talk about. Some people are avoiding this topic, but we have to face it. We have actually just gone through a major war with the COVID-19 virus. Every one of us was affected. I'm in Singapore, and we were, affected so bad that a lot of businesses here had to shut down. We went into a lockdown. Finally, we are out of the woods, but, we went through a tough 2 years. Now, as we head into the post-pandemic world, help us to understand to what extent did COVID-19, and I believe you did have restrictive measures put in place in Africa. So COVID-19, as well as the restrictive measures, how did it affect the economy in Nigeria, as well as the Nigerian business community? You see, because what we do understand that they already have needs, your people have needs, but because of COVID, the needs have evolved, needs have changed. So how did you go about addressing this, and how did you as a chamber step in to assist your members?
Thank you again, Francis. This is a very critical question. And like we all know, the COVID pandemic basically took the entire world by surprise. And so what most people, most businesses did was basically, more like on-the-spot measures to ensure that they survived. Nigeria and basically our own part of the state here in Bayelsa, we are more like we were caught off guard, so to say. So Nigeria essentially depends, in the past couple of years, has depended largely on imports. So the huge impact was in supply chains disruptions, which was basically across the globe anyway. So the easiest thing to do at this point in time, which was part of what the chamber also helped to do for our members who are into services, into import and export businesses, we basically stood with them to ensure that their businesses were resilient enough within the period. Of course, you know that there are downtimes at factories affecting production. But again, it was important at that point in time to ensure that businesses began to find ways to innovate. Innovation was the key word at this point in time. For those who are in primary production, we ensured that they engaged in more in value addition to existing products, and by extension, expanding their businesses in that regard. Of course, with the insight of medicine and the jobs that came, it also helped in no small measure to ensure that some people could move minimally. Internally, businesses began to integrate functions that could be, functions that could be served by 4 or 5 persons or 6 persons now had to be taken over by 2 persons, so it had to do with a lot of in-service, in-training within businesses. But what we did for our members was essentially to ensure that they built internal resilience amongst or within themselves. And resilience, like would be either financial resilience at this point in time, operational resilience, adapting new technology to ensure that they could stay in business or expand or create innovative ways of doing the same business. And as an organization, they could remain in some way in business right until the pandemic wore off. So these are a few of the things that, we stood with our members to ensure that they imbibe them. And, with all of that, we came through and the world is better off for it. Thank you so much, Francis.
What you're saying is really true. From my personal experience as well, even in the hospitals in Singapore, we had a huge influx of patients and the hospitals were overwhelmed. I'm sure it was across the globe. And nurses who used to handle like 2 patients now had to handle like 6 to 8 patients. And we had also hospital staff who wanted to go on home leave, because in Singapore we have staff from Philippines, we have staff from India, we have staff from Malaysia working as doctors and nurses. They couldn't go home for almost 2 years. So it was really tough. It was really tough. But, thank God we are on the way out and everything's going well. Now, let's talk about the Africa Climate Week, which just took place about, I think, just over 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is where there were talks on the challenges faced by Africa with regard to climate change, as well as the importance of regional collaboration and the implementation of solutions to mitigate the impact of climate change. It has also been said that tackling climate change would require the most significant political, social, and economic effort that the world has ever seen. Now, what role does your chamber play in all of this?
Again, this is also a very critical question. And to put it lightly, Bayelsa State is in that part of Nigeria where you have a lot of oil and gas activities.
Yes.
And so for a very long time, we've been into advocacy on issues that border on environmental degradation and stuff like that. So again, you notice that we have a very rich background that adds up to, what is ongoing about climate change. Now, in the past, yes, we've done a lot of advocacy, but with, the coming to the front burner on issues about climate change, what we have done is to continue and remain in very strict advocacy. We do that with our members, we do that with the general public, and then again, we collaborate with government to fashion out implementation mechanisms, processes, and timelines in line with what the country, Nigeria, has set out to achieve on climate change. So that what we do beyond just engaging government is also to ensure that we provide expertise within our membership to be part of government committees and organizations that have the need to fashion out the required policies in tandem with our national policies. Again, that also helps us to be in the mainstream of the nation's efforts at climate change. So it's more like an integration process based on our background in environmental issues. We integrate ourselves into the national policy. Again, like you would know, the Yenagoa Chamber of Commerce is part of a network of about 55 chambers of commerce within the country. And those are just city or state chambers of commerce. We're also we have access to bilateral chambers of commerce, like the US Nigeria Chamber of Commerce, the British Nigeria Chamber of Commerce, and all of that. So it's a huge network of which we're a part of. And we find our ways to integrate with the efforts of all of these or chambers of commerce to affect national policies on climate change. We provide the expertise that is required for government to adopt. We provide timelines for government to adopt, and then we have, means and ways to ensure that government, in tandem with our own resolutions, our own opinions, our own advisory, are able to fashion out the very best of policies in tandem again with national and global aspirations for climate change.
Amazing. Now, there has been a lot of change, not just climate change, but there has been change within the industry. There's been change in consumer spending patterns, their purchasing behavior, all due to COVID-19. Everybody started buying stuff online. A lot of what we would call the mom and pop stores, the brick and mortar stores, as some of us call it, they're going out of business because whatever they have been selling now can be purchased online.
Correct.
Yeah. So the change is not just in this, but also in the various business models, because companies, big and small, they have had to adapt to these changes. Now, what do you think are some of the changes being faced by the smaller companies, the SMEs in Nigeria, as they shift towards the adaptation of technology into their businesses?
Yeah. Thank you. Again, somehow you've managed to always bring the very critical issues to the front burner, and that's very good.
I have done my research.
That's great. Now, again, the COVID-19 pandemic has taught the entire globe new lessons in trade, commerce, and services. So it is very critical for small businesses to adopt technology. But what we have looked at is what kind of technology. So first we do an evaluation of appropriate technology. And then secondly, we are very critical about what kinds of technology to access. So the issues that bother us are access to technology, evaluation of appropriate technology, which the small businesses can adopt. Again, what we ask ourselves is, what do these businesses want? Do they want technology to aid business? Do they want technology to aid management? Do they want technology to expand the concept of their businesses? So we know exactly what kind of access we help create for them for the right kind of technology that they require. Again, we know that for small businesses, one of the critical challenges that they face is access to finance. So, again, technology doesn't come cheap, it doesn't come free. So we know that our members would definitely require finances that would support their quest for access to the right kind of technology. So we help in small measures to ensure that they have the right kind of access to finance and then the right kind of access to technology. Again, we also do a lot of research, and we know that in Singapore, you do.
I'm sorry, the video froze.
The globe as things that others have done to succeed. So we are doing that to ensure that our members have, like I said before, the right technology. We provide access to finance for them to access technology. And then we also provide advisory, for technology use. And, that way, we know that they are not, how do I put it? They use it appropriately to achieve the needs that they set out to achieve from the very beginning.
Right. Technology came in to help people, but it also became very disruptive to a lot of businesses.
Of course, it can be disruptive, yes.
Both ways. We look at it both ways. Now, let's talk about the economic development of the entire continent. When you break it down, for example, through the countries like Nigeria, for example, and then you break it down even further to the cities and to the businesses that are operating in the cities, down to the smaller SMEs. Now, can you tell us how your chamber actually supports these SMEs to become catalysts? Now we go big again, to become catalysts for economic growth.
Again, I mentioned earlier, we learn from across the globe. We learn from what other chambers, other nations, other states are doing. And all over the world, we are aware that small and medium enterprises make up nearly 90% in some instances, 97% in some instances of all the businesses within their territories. For us, it's almost 99% of small and medium enterprises. So what we do, we know that first of all, we understand that because of the large number of SMEs there are, we take into cognizance the ubiquity, meaning we know that they are virtually everywhere. So the first thing we do is to ensure that we create that integration between small businesses, irrespective of their locations. Secondly, we create access for them to understand that they must participate more or less in value addition. And then we provide specific training in creating linkages for them, whether they be horizontal linkages or vertical linkages. That way we know that they can perform optimally. And again, we are aware that, yes, oftentimes they're small, and in that regard, they operate mostly in the informal sector. So again, we find ways to ensure that they, as many as possible, can transit from the informal sector into the formal sector, where they can have access to finance for their businesses. And then from the formal sector, we ensure the growth of small or micro businesses, and we can target a specific number of them to transition from micro to small businesses. Again, we target small businesses who can transition from being small businesses into medium enterprises. That way, we know that we can always create, have this critical mass of small businesses that are in the goal, basically growing, so we can target, we can monitor and evaluate their growth process over the period. It is in their growth that we know that the economy can grow, that it can add to the GDP of the local economy. So these are the simple areas that we target to ensure that that catalyst is achieved using the small and medium enterprises to achieve that. Thank you.
You have, thank you, George. You've actually answered my next question. In fact, what I wanted to ask you, because I just wanted to explore, because we do understand that, business is all about connections, local, international, we need to go global. And you have mentioned that you create linkages for your members in order for them to expand. Now, let's talk about these linkages. How do you go about doing this? Do you have events for them that they can actually attend, or do you organize any activities for them, or is it by pure business matching connection?
Okay, what we have done in the past is, yes, we create opportunities for them to access business, or we create platforms for them to access business opportunities. And over the past number of years, what we've done, essentially knowing that the world has become a global village, we provide access not just to local platforms, but to national, sub-regional, continental, and global platforms. From about 2008, we were able to create a platform for our businesses to be a part of the World Expo in Spain at Zaragoza. Going forward, we were also part of the Expo at Dubai. Again, we also create the African Union just had their very first annual SME forum in Egypt in the month of June into July. We're also present at such fora. So what we do is wherever there are opportunities for businesses either to showcase themselves, their capacities, their products, we create that opportunity for them. Again, we also ensure that at such events, they have access to business matchmaking. They have access to business to government, where governments are creating opportunities that are wider than what as individuals we can access. So basically, we ensure that our businesses become part of a global transaction. We find ways to ensure that they participate in global trade in the smallest of measures that we can achieve. That way, over the years, we can, through such events, through such platforms, monitor their growth process and evaluate them and help them to transition, like I mentioned earlier, from where they are to where they intend to be.
Just off the record, can I just ask you, is it mandatory for companies in Africa or Nigeria, for that matter, to take up a chamber membership? Is it mandatory?
Well, it has not become mandatory yet. What the process or the tradition has been is it's been a voluntary process for businesses to become part of chambers. But what we do essentially, because we know that, what is voluntary, many persons might not want to be a part of it. So it talks well to do a lot of advocacy in that regard. So that forms a lot of what the chamber does. We tell people why it is important, why it is beneficial for them to be a part of the chamber arrangement. And, that basically is the teaching, is advocacy process that, we have engaged in for the past 13 or more years.
That is basically my job as the chamber guy.
Oh, great. That's great.
I go around the world telling everybody how important chamber membership is. Because from what you are saying, it does not make sense if a company were to open up and they do not take up a chamber membership. It just does not make sense. The kind of assistance that you can provide, the support, the advocacy. If they forego all this, the next pandemic, the next calamity, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
You're very correct. Yeah. Very correct.
Now, I would need you to tell me a story. I'm going to ask you to tell me a story about one member in your Chamber of Commerce who took up the membership. It could be a local member, or it could be a foreign company that's set up in Nigeria. How did they benefit directly?
Okay, that is a tricky one, but I fondly remember a particular local member. He was operating in the informal sector and then had access to me, and we had a little discussion and, the story about the benefits of being part of a Chamber of Commerce. And then rather reluctantly, he enlisted to become a member. And over time, we provided the support that he required in advocacy. What we also do is we provide mentorship for those who require mentorship. For those who don't have the kind of experience they need to succeed in that sector of business, we provide that kind of mentorship. And then we discovered that, in our area, agriculture makes a lot of sense to us. And then, we have lots of small businesses who are into agriculture. And we discovered that this business particularly was into agriculture and providing value addition to local production. And incidentally, had need for finance, which he didn't have. Now, what we couldn't provide, we provided access to him. And he was able to have access to finance for fund financing his equipment required for value addition production. And today, over the past, from 2012 till date, he's been such a very happy fellow. Ordinarily, he wouldn't have had access to what he got. And so that is a typical story for what we provide to those we think should endeavor to be a part of the Chamber of Commerce. not just not just being in chamber, but the huge benefits in business to business matchmaking, the huge benefits in access to government, access to government in key areas that support their kinds of business. We're able to, through their experience, also profile opinions and provide policy guidelines for government to adopt, to ensure that the business climate is very conducive for all kinds of businesses. So those are a bit of the stories that we've had. He's just one of sort, but he's very dear, to me at heart, because I nurtured that from beginning to the ending.
And that keeps you going, I believe.
Oh yes, it sure does. It sure does.
From speaking to you, I can actually see the burning passion there in what you do, in wanting to help the companies, in wanting to help the SMEs grow. Not many people have this kind of burning passion. Now, if a company wants to take up a chamber membership with you, what is the first step that they have to do?
Well, the first step, we always ensure that we create an opportunity to talk. Okay. Because we don't want them to feel like we just want them to be a part of the chamber to swell our numbers.
Right.
So we sit with them and do a proper evaluation. We sit with them, we talk with them to know that they understand clearly why they want to be a part of the chamber, by exposing the content and the structure of the Chamber of Commerce and the benefits. That having been done, the second part of what we do is to provide access to just brief registration. We understand their details of what they do, if they are in the informal sector or they have basic registration under the laws of the country. That is the major first step. And then once that is done, we bring them in and find ways to provide mentorship for them. Like I mentioned earlier, we mentor them because we know that they don't have the requisite experiences within the sector now that they are coming into the formal sector to survive, the competition. We provide that. Because again, in the chamber, we have what we call the business development department, which does, for those who require to have business plans for their businesses, we, within the unit, within the department in the Chamber of Commerce, we provide that service. Sometimes it can be done for virtually free, sometimes for little, just so that they know that they have to pay for services. But otherwise, all of these are things that we do to ensure that we take them from ground zero, to a point where they can stand on their own and they can survive and be competitive within the sector of businesses that they are participating.
Wow. That is all I can say. Wow. The number of things that you do for your members. Now, just one final one. Do you have any final words you want to share with the global business community?
It is this simple. Africa is seen oftentimes in a very negative light in the eyes of the globe. And in the Yenagoa Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture, we're speaking to the hearts and the minds of people to say Africa has huge resources and it can only be beneficial to all of us when we become friends and when we can clearly see this point of view, as friends. And again, Africa, like we all know, we can't keep overemphasizing. The potentials are huge and can benefit everybody, from agriculture to oil and gas to production to value addition and all of that. And the final word is to say that Bayelsa State, where the Yenagoa Chamber of Commerce is the destination for global business. Thank you so much.
Jones, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you.
I'm so glad, Mr. the Chamber Guy.
I'm the Chamber Guy.
Yes, you are. It will be very beneficial for me to keep in touch with you, and then to also provide access for our members to what you are doing, at the Gochambers, and again, trying to bring lots of chambers together under one umbrella, creating that sort of synergy that is, very important for businesses to happen and for benefits for everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Francis.
That is exactly what we are doing. We're bringing all chambers, not just in the area, but we are talking about global chambers together. In fact,
I've seen all of that on your platform.
Yeah, next week I'll be in Jakarta. We are having a massive event. We have a lot of chambers and representatives from various embassies who will be attending.
Okay.
So, it's going to be a pretty good event.
I think I'm aware of that event. I think I'm aware of it. It's we had information from the Indonesian embassy here in Nigeria circulated to the chambers of commerce, so I'm aware of that.
Right. That's going to be hosted by us, and I look forward to speaking with you soon again. Our time is running out, so we need to go off the recording now. But hey, it's been great. And I will definitely want to speak to you again.
Thank you, Francis. I'm so delighted to have been a part of this program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jones, and you have a great day ahead. And blessings from Singapore.
And you too. And my regards to Vandra and to Riesta and all of them.
I will pass it on. Thank you, Jones.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. That was Mr. Warmate Jones Idikio, the Director General of the Yenagoa Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture. This man is a man with burning passion to serve the business community. To find out more about this chamber and how they can help your business in Nigeria, click on the links that we have provided below. Please leave your comments below and do give us a shout. Our contact details are there as well. Remember to follow our channel for more interviews with chambers from around the world. I'm Francis Michael, and I'll see you soon on The Chamber Guy.